Is quarterback in need for the New Orleans Saints? Some people say yes, others say no. So for today's video, I'm actually going to go through over 20 different quarterback targets that Kellen Moore could potentially bring into the Saints, because I do believe a change could be made here in the near future at the most important position of sports. So when it comes to shopping for a quarterback, you can go through many different avenues here. You can go internal. You got starters, you got backups, you got third string, you got practice squad. You can also hit the free agency market. Go sign a player. Go sign a guy who didn't get his second contract. Go sign an aging veteran, a bridge quarterback or something. Or you can also draft a player in the 2025 draft. There is also the obvious, you can make a trade. But, for today's video, I'm really not that interested in trading for a quarterback. We're going to name a few options that you could potentially trade for. I'm just going to say right off the bat, I'm not that interested in giving up more than a draft pick, and honestly, not even a high-level draft pick, like a later draft pick for a quarterback this year. So just wanted to give you guys that information just right off the rip. Really quickly, though, we are so damn close to 42,000 subscribers. We're less than 200 away, so help your boy out. I asked you to give me 150 last week. Guess what? You guys gave me 375 on a video. So I'm going to ask for your help one more time. Let's get to 42K with this video. Subscribe for free Saints videos. All right, let's dive into the depth chart. Here's the internal options. You have Derek Carr, Spencer Rattler, Jake Haener. I believe this is how the quarterback depth chart pans out. I do believe Jake Haener is the QB2 or QB3, while Spencer Rattler is the QB2. But in my honest opinion, sure, you can go with the Derek Carr route and you can restructure him. You can potentially save up to $30 million if you do restructure him, but this just continues to kick the can down the road. And I will say Derek Carr is a realistic option. Like, we would be remiss if we didn't mention Carr as a possibility throughout this video. But I'm just going to say it right now. I'm not paying him $51.5 million. That's just not worth it. Derek Carr is not worth $50 million. Derek Carr is barely worth $30 million. I'm going to be totally honest. I have zero intention of giving Derek Carr a really nice amount of money, because quite frankly, that money needs to go elsewhere to build around him, because he is not that much of a difference maker. A CBS article, a lot of this information coming from an article that I found that CBS put out recently, they actually projected that Derek Carr would sign with the Colts this offseason on a one-year, $15 million contract, meaning the Saints end up cutting him, save $30 million, and they have money to spend elsewhere with some of that dead money coming in, later on. Now, for Spencer Rattler, I'll say this, he's shown flashes. He's been good. He hasn't been great, but he hasn't also put together a complete game. And, if I'm going to be Kellen Moore and I want to mortgage my future on a quarterback, it's certainly not going to be a guy who hasn't logged a win in the National Football League yet. Granted, bad situation, bad O-line, no support around him, but also have still not put together a full game. Both things can be true at the same time. I just wanted to see a little bit more before I 100% bake my future on Rattler. Jake Haener, in terms of him, though, he is, in my opinion, the odd man out. I don't think that he has much of a role on this roster. Maybe a backup. Maybe he can be a solid backup. I'm not totally sure he can be a high-level backup, but, maybe. He's cheap. He's not going to ever cost you too much money. So, nothing against Jake Haener. If you're upset that I said Derek Carr and Jake Haener are probably not the future, I'm really going to go ahead and say this. I apologize that Fresno State is not an NFL quarterback factory. It's not. Jake Haener and Derek Carr, they're not great quarterbacks. Spencer Rattler has not proven he can be a great quarterback, but the ceiling for Rattler is sky high versus the ceiling for Haener really not that high, in my opinion. You can also explore free agency if you wanted to go and sign a player. Sam Darnold, he had a phenomenal season with the Minnesota Vikings. He's only 27 years old. So, you do get a player who has some experience, played in a lot of different systems, but, has recently been able to find his success and been able to find his stride with the Minnesota Vikings this past year under Kevin O'Connell. I mean, over 4,300 yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. He protected the football well. He was a big part of why the Vikings offense was able to succeed despite J.J. McCarthy missing the entire season with injuries. So when it comes down to Sam Darnold, CBS, they do think that Darnold will actually go back to Minnesota and they'll re-sign with the Vikings on a 3-year contract worth about $114 million. I think that's a little bit of an overpay for Sam Darnold. 3 years, call it $90 million. I mean, I'd give him $30 million a year. Like, I just think that one great season with a phenomenal head coach, with a phenomenal defense, with a phenomenal line, with some of the best wide receivers in the game, I think that's just a lot of money to give a guy like Sam Darnold. But I will give him credit. He definitely earned himself a check this offseason. Now, Russell Wilson, also an option. He's a little bit older at 36 years old. I personally think that the Steelers will decide to keep Russell Wilson, but we have to discuss it as an idea because he is a free agent. And to be totally honest, it's not like this past season was just through the roof and so damn impressive. 63.7 completion percentage, not even 2,500 yards, 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. I'll tell you what, Russell Wilson at one point in time, he was a hot commodity. He was a phenomenal football player and at the top of the league. Nowadays, really not that interested in it. I think that Russell Wilson, I just don't think he's going to move the needle that much in the New Orleans Saints offense. And the Saints aren't just a quarterback away from competing realistically for big-time games and whatnot, like maybe the NFC South, but we all know what happens. When you're in the NFC South, you get knocked out in the first round of the playoffs because, the NFC South is a joke. In terms of Russell Wilson, CBS does believe that he actually will return to Pittsburgh. I think he'll return to Pittsburgh as well. But I also think that Justin Fields is an option too. 2 years, $50 million is the contract that CBS thinks that Russ will sign. So we'll have to see if that's what he ends up inking in his deal. Now, Justin Fields, we did mention Russ. Fields is a name a lot of Saints fans are very, very fired up about. 25 years young. He is a dual threat player. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball. He is dangerous on the ground. He's very dynamic with his legs. And to be totally honest, Kellen Moore's offense needs a guy who can not necessarily be a dual threat quarterback. He doesn't have to be a mobile or have to be a running quarterback, but he needs to be mobile. He needs to be able to buy time. He needs to be able to get out of the pocket. He needs to be able to freelance, and he needs to be able to improvise in order to create more time and allow plays to develop when shit hits the fan, quite frankly. In terms of Justin Fields, they actually think that he might go out to Sin City. Not New Orleans, but he's going out to Vegas. 1 year, $11 million contract. I'll tell you what, if I'm the New Orleans Saints, I'm 100% offering him this contract. 1 year, $11 million, absolutely. That's less than you paid Chase Young last year. I mean, give him an incentive-based contract, see what you got. And if it works out well, you give him a long-term contract after that. That's what he's been seeking this entire time. So we'll have to see what happens in terms of Justin Fields and where things can go from there, but you never know. I also will say this. I want to show you guys the bridge quarterbacks that the New Orleans Saints could potentially go and sign. There's a lot of names. We're going to show you guys a full list of names. There's a photo with a bunch of names like Jameis Winston, like Russell Wilson, or like Marcus Mariota, Gardner Minshew, a bunch of those guys. It's actually at the bottom of the photos here, Moustakis, if you want to pull that one up. Yep, right here. Let's pull this one up so we can all see this. Next tier, veterans for the New Orleans Saints. You can go J-Bo, Gardner Minshew, Carson Wentz, Jimmy G, Cooper Rush, Mac Jones, Trey Lance, Mason Rudolph are names that have been mentioned. I don't think that any of these guys really make all that much sense. Not interested in Jimmy G. Not interested in Cooper Rush. Not interested in Mac Jones. Maybe. Probably not, though. I mean, he's young. That's kind of the only appeal there. Jameis Winston is an exception because, there's a zero tolerance policy at this channel when it comes to J-Bo slander. So there is options in terms of free agents that are veterans that have been around that aren't going to cost a lot of money but aren't high-level players. But then you could also see these guys as cut candidates. Kirk Cousins, the Falcons could look to move on from him and roll with Michael Penix. So if they do that, you cut Kirk Cousins, you signed him for an $150 million contract. What a joke. F you, Atlanta. You guys are idiots. But Aaron Rodgers, also an option. I'll say this. I'm going to keep this one short and sweet. Old quarterbacks with no Achilles, yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll pass. I'm good. Kellen Moore's going to need a guy who has a little bit of mobility at the bare minimum. And if it comes down to whether it's Spencer Rattler, Kirk Cousins, or Aaron Rodgers, it's a very obvious choice here. It's Spencer Rattler. I'm not going with an old quarterback that has no Achilles in his leg. It's just not going to be a thing I'm signing up for personally. And coming up here, we got some wild card options that we're going to get to and some draft targets. But really quick, I want to give a shout out to Fanatics. And I got to tell you guys about this awesome shirt right here. If you guys want to go get this sick Nike Saints pullover with the hood and everything, 40% off if you use our link, chatsports.com/SaintsLS. It's Saints long sleeve in case you guys are trying to figure out what that's for. It's linked in the comments and description of this video. Still a little chilly outside. Get geared up and swagged out with the link in the comments and description of this video. Alrighty, let's talk about Matthew Stafford as a trade option. Again, I'm going to say this. I'm not interested in trading for a quarterback. However, we're still going to discuss possibilities because this isn't a what would I do? It's a what can the Saints do kind of video. So Matthew Stafford is an option to trade for. He's up there in the age column. He's had productive seasons in the past. He's been a good football player, but at 36 years old, maybe retirement's an option. Maybe the Rams are looking to go ahead and end this run of the Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford era and, usher in their next quarterback. If that's the case, maybe the Saints could look to trade for Matthew Stafford. Not really interested. Again, old quarterback, expensive. I'm good. I don't really want to deal with that. But, CBS also did mention another name in Brock Purdy. And look, if you're going to trade for a quarterback, this one isn't that bad, I guess you could say. There is definitely a lot of question marks and a lot of concerns around Purdy. Like, is he great or in those first couple of years, was he great or were the Niners great? Because this past year, things did not go too well for Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan's offense. And look, if the Saints want to go and get a guy who has a good quality experience, who's succeeded in the postseason and is still young, Brock Purdy's that guy. And I'm going to be honest, it's probably not going to cost you all of the, kingdom's gold to get him, but it will be one of those things you're going to have to pay a pretty penny because he's a quarterback, and that's just the plain and simple facts of it. Now, last name. No, absolutely the hell not. Kyler Murray. This guy stinks. He's a midget. And to be totally honest, I've never seen him play a snap of good football. He went to Allen High School. I grew up here in Plano, Texas. Went to Plano West High School. I watched the greatest high school football game of my generation. Soso Jamambo, a running back that we had, versus Kyler Murray is the number one running back in the country versus the number one quarterback in the country in an offensive shootout, like 52-48 final score. All that's fine. But guess what? I also did that same week, and I picked him off in indoor flag football. There's no huddle because the Plano Sports Authority does not have a huddle account. That being said, I picked off Kyler Murray, so if my dumb ass is going to pick somebody off, I can assure you I am not rooting for him to be on my roster. Some of this was just kind of a Kyler Murray hit piece. It's just having some fun. This is YouTube. We're being entertaining. We're not those big wig, big J, suit-wearing losers at ESPN. Now, in terms of draft targets, there's a lot of options. And let me emphasize, a lot of options. I did not say a lot of good options. I said there are options. You can go Shador or Cam Ward, but you're not going to land. They're not going to land at 9. They're going to be in the top 5 picks. Jackson Dart, for the love of God, do not take him in the first round. Jalen Milroe, I'm not high on him. He's skipping passes at the Senior Bowl. Never really won anything of substance at Alabama. I guess congrats on beating Georgia, but you never won anything that really mattered. Quinn Ewers, I thought he was a very highly touted prospect coming out of high school. He's a very talented thrower of the football. However, his college career, a little bit disappointing if you ask me. Dylan Gabriel, Will Howard, and Kyle McCord are also names that Saints fans have mentioned before in the past in my videos. So, we went through 25, 20-something like that names? I mean, we went free agency, draft, trades, internal options. I gave you everything I could possibly think of as a quarterback target. Now, who's your guy? Who do you want it to be? Who should be the Saints quarterback next season? Let me know down in the comment section. I'm going to give you my thoughts right now. I'm going to say just give me Spencer Rattler, draft Jackson Dart in the 4th round, and then sign Jameis Winston for vibes. Sign him for good vibes. I'll tell you one thing. It's very telling when you have an $150 million quarterback and he is nowhere to be found during Super Bowl week. He's nowhere to be found And when there's any sort of fun events going on in New Orleans, we have Mardi Gras starting up, and where the hell is Derek Carr? Oh, he's in California, doing his thing. That's fine. Go get a guy who wants to be here. Go get a guy who's going to be good for the locker room. Go get a guy who's going to be a fun presence. It's going to honestly make Saints fans happy and put butts in seats. Derek Carr is not putting butts in seats. Jameis Winston, he will. People like Jameis Winston. He may not be the best quarterback in the whole wide world, but he would be the definition of a bridge quarterback where all you have to do is in an absolute emergency, come in and be sufficient. And guess what? I'll tell you this. You might be sitting here saying, but Jameis is terrible. He's so bad. My point exactly, ladies and gentlemen. He's not going to go and win you a ton of games, maybe one or two, but he's not going to go and take your team to the Super Bowl. Jameis Winston is just good enough to be a high-level backup that's really fun to have in the locker room without the risk of, oh, man, are we going to really hurt future draft stock when we're at 4 wins on the season? It's not going to be a problem. There's injuries, throw J-Bo in. He'll have a lot of fun. And plus, there's the obvious connection with the players on the roster because he was with the team for so long. Alrighty, this was a fun video. We had a lot of fun. I also have been saying a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions about the quarterback position on my social media accounts. You'd actually know a lot of what I had to say already in today's video had you followed me on socials. So hit your boy up on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. All of them are linked in the comments and description of this video. Whatever your favorite social media platform is, I'm posting on it. So hit your boy up on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok, and we'll see you guys next time. Y'all stay golden.